Sony 50mm f1.2. Let's review this. What's good, guys? My name is Oleg Nikitin, you're watching No Limits On channel from Russia with love, and I'm shooting right now on a 50mm G Master f1.2 at f1.2 so you can see the picture quality, and let's go to the review. Why Sony G Masters are that expensive? They do worth the money, I think, because you get a lot of great stuff for the cash you pay. And actually, if you were using Canon, we have L lenses, and here we have kind of Sony L lenses, so they are the best in class, really great products. And now about the price, it is $2,000. Is it worth it? We'll find out. Hit the like and subscribe buttons if you also are shocked by the price of this lens, and I was really scared to carry it around because it's not mine, it's a review unit. And you know, $2,000 is a price when you can get a pretty good camera for the money. Let's talk about the kit. It comes in a pretty regular orange box from Sony. Also here we have a little pouch, really well made pouch by the way. It has some zippy mechanisms right here. Also we have a strap and a special holder to hold it onto your belt, to put it onto your belt. Also here we have a little lens hood which is padded nicely, kind of a velvet padding inside, a release button and a rubberized ring on the front, so you are not bumping your lens into something. You actually don't want to bump this lens into something because it's really expensive. And also here we have a lens cap with this mechanism. I don't really use lens caps, but the kit is good. The build quality is just outstanding. All of the G Master lenses are perfectly made. They are weather sealed, of course. We have the gasket on the back of the lens, metal mount, and everything about this lens is really beautifully manufactured. Also, we have an aperture ring, which can work in automatic mode when you change the aperture on your camera with the wheel, or in a, traditional clicky way, so you change it manually, or you can declick it with a special switch and use it for your videography needs. Basically, here's the shot when I'm changing the aperture, and you can see how the picture gets darker. Also, we have two additional extra buttons. You can customize those buttons, and actually I've made it to be an autofocus, manual focus switch, and it's really important when you're using it in the portrait mode. Portrait mode. It's easily reachable to your fingers, which is great. The size and weight of this lens is, it's pretty bulky. It weighs 778 grams, which is pretty heavy, and it's a little front heavy on my Sony a7S III, and also it's that big that my mounting plate for the tripod is not, regularly located. You have to push the camera a little forward, or buy a riser plate, or use a cage with your camera so you can balance this lens correctly onto your camera and your tripod or your Steadicam, which is a little bummer to me, but it is what it is. It's a lot of glass in this lens. The Sony 50mm f1.2 G Master lens has 72mm front filter thread, which is a little bummer because 35mm and 24mm G Master lenses, they both have 67mm threads. A lot of lenses right now are having the 67mm. For instance, the Tamron line of lenses is 67mm, and I have a lot of 67mm filters laying around, and I had to use my 82mm filter and D64 with an adapter ring to be able to shoot in bright sunlight with f1.2. Of course, you do need a filter, an ND, to shoot in bright light with f1.2, and the ND64 was pretty okay to allow me to shoot in 4K 50 frames a second. Okay, $2,000 is a lot for 50mm f1.2, but let's see some other options from other manufacturers. What do we have on the market? So we have Canon RF for R6 and R5 Canons. It costs $2,300, which is pricier, and weighs 950 grams, which is heavier. Also, we have the Nikkor Z for Nikon Z6 cameras, or Z6, depending on where you watch this video, and it costs $2,100, also more expensive, and enormous 1.1 kilogram of weight, which is very heavy, guys. Also, we have the Sony Zeiss planar 50mm f1.4 ZA lens. It's a pretty old lens, 1.4 costs $1,500 and weighs 780 grams, which is okay in my opinion, but there is a lot of reviews that this lens has back copies, a lot of back copies of this lens, and has some issues with autofocus, so it's kind of not that big of an option. And also we have the Sigma 50mm f1.4 art version for E-mount lens, and also it depends if you need a 1.2 lens or 1.4. It weighs 815 grams and costs $9,500, which is okay in my opinion. So it depends whether you need this extra light, extra blur, and extra build quality. The sharpness and picture quality, this is the most interesting part of the review, I guess, and I was comparing the G Master with the Nikkor f1.4 50mm lens for Nikon. I took this from my girlfriend, and actually it's a pretty old lens but very popular among a lot of photographers, guys, and let's see the comparison. So here's the difference between f1.2 and f1.4 in the same ISO and shutter speed, so you can see the difference right here. It's obvious that f1.2 is brighter, but not enormously brighter, I guess, and also a little blurrier, as you might have noticed. So in terms of sharpness, the f1.2 G Master lens is really sharp from f1.2. I'm really satisfied with the sharpness of this lens, but it has a lot of vignette at f1.2. If we stop down to f2, the vignette is gone almost, and I really enjoy the sharpness and overall look of this lens at f1.4 or 1.6 or f2. f1.2 is great when you need this vignette look, and yeah, it's totally usable at f1.2. The Nikkor lens is kind of so-so at f1.4. If you stop it down to f2.8, the vignette disappears and it gets really sharper, but f1.4 on the Nikon lens is kind of soft. Also, I have to mention that this lens has a lot of coatings, some elements and all that stuff to eliminate the chromatic aberrations, to increase the sharpness and all that stuff. Here is the full list if you're interested in it. And now let's talk about the bokeh. To my eye, the bokeh is beautiful, it's creamy, it's smooth, it's just, you know, it's filmic looking and it's cinematic, if I can say so. The word cinematic is really overused during the last like 10 years probably, but it is cinematic. The lens has 11 blades of aperture, so you get really creamy bokeh, and when you step down you also don't lose the circular shape of the bokehs. They stay pretty round all over the place, and I would say there is a little bit of cat's eye shape in the bokeh towards the edges of the frame, but overall it's a very pleasing bokeh to look at. Here's the Nikon lens bokeh as well. It's a little busier and a little more vintage looking, I would say, but the 50mm G Master has kind of classic, very precise and nice bokeh, and it's just like falling from the in focus to out of focus really gently, and I do enjoy this bokeh a lot. The work of autofocus, it's a challenge for a lens to be autofocusing at f1.2 because the shallow depth of field is like 1 centimeter or some few centimeters, I guess, from time to time, and I was using it in my shoot and had almost no issues with it. And also I did a test comparing it to my 24-70 f4 Sony lens, and yeah, it's much easier to focus with the f4 at 50mm than with the f1.8 at 50mm, and I'm pretty satisfied with the autofocus of this lens. Yeah, there were times that it was a little misfocusing or a little slower, and I used the best sensitivity and the fastest setting on my Sony a7S III, but I can definitely say that I'm satisfied with the work of autofocus and no complaints here. Flares. It's not flary at all, I would say. You do get a little flare, just like on this shot, and this flare is literally minimal, and the contrast is good. You're not losing a ton of contrast when you point the camera towards the sun or some bright source of light. For some people it is important not to have some flares, and some people will be missing some flary ghosty things, but I do enjoy using this lens without huge flares, and it's okay to me. The minimal focus and distance is 40 centimeters. Jero Dandan was complaining a lot in his review of this lens that he wants to get a little closer to the subject when he's shooting, but to me it wasn't an issue. I shot some rings, I shot a close-up of a couple, and I didn't have any complaints about it. And let's be honest, guys, this lens is not a macro lens by any means and has some different purposes, so it's okay. So guys, the conclusion, is it worth $2,000? For some photographers and videographers it probably is, or does, how do you say? But to me it's a little overpriced. I did enjoy using it, it's a beautiful lens, well manufactured, beautiful picture quality, nice bokeh, very sharp indeed, and the pictures we get from this lens is just, it's gorgeous, guys. But to me, $2,000 is a lot of cash, and for most of us, it is a lot of cash. So if you do have the money, go for it. If you want the 51.2, go for it. If you don't want to get 1.2 and you don't have the cash for it, f1.8 55mm is also a great option. It's not that different to my eye. And most of the people won't see the difference between f1.8 and f1.2 like straight away without pixel peeping and all that stuff. So my final conclusion is that it is a great product, it's worth it, but it's expensive. And guys, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Is it worth it for you? Which 50mm lens do you use? And also don't forget to smash once again the like and subscribe buttons and the notifications bell to see more of my videos when they come out. Also, here's my Instagram and a couple of videos for you to watch next on my channel. Thank you very much for watching. This was Oleg Nikitin from Russia with Love, and I see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.